They're kind of calling this like Google search for doctors. I'm calling this Android for doctors. The network effect is coming from APIs and third-party developers that can create software for the end user. The end user in this case being the physician, the health record, certain lab diagnostic tests, your genetic information, your user-generated Fitbit information. You start tying these things together, that's the holy grail.
Google caught a lot of flack for this Ascension Health news where they had millions of medical records. Someone broke the news. And then as a result, Google came out with more information about what they're doing with electric health records, or EHR, EMR data is the acronym. So we're going to dig into that in a second. Google's doing a number of things in this area. Verily is a separate entity from Google. Right. That is their kind of like life sciences moonshot business. They have this thing called Project Baseline, which we've spoken about on the show, which is now partnered up with a handful of some of the biggest pharma companies in the world, trying to change how the clinical kind of therapeutic evaluation process is done, right? So basically what you would call is the clinical trial, where you now are getting real patients to test out your drug, and you have half the people take basically the real drug, and then half people take a fake version of it. They don't know if they're taking it or not. And then you compare these two groups and you try and see, do I see a difference between the group that actually took the drug versus the group that took the placebo, I think, right? Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
And hopefully the former does better than the latter. Otherwise, it's not a good it's not getting past the clinical trial. Anyway, so they're doing stuff in that arena. They're doing stuff with drug discovery, which is the process of researching new therapeutics. So that's even a level higher in the therapeutic, which is just a fancy word for drug. In the therapeutic creation process, drug discovery is, hey, how do I figure out what drugs to research and then to create and kind of trial out in a lab? And then the next step is, okay, now let me put this actually in tests, clinical trials, try and get the FDA to approve it. And then there's the distribution of that drug and all these things. Google Health is a completely other division. Google Health is within Alphabet. Google Health is run by this guy, David Feinberg, who used to run a massive healthcare system called Geisinger. Now he's at Google. This fellow is who we're going to watch talk about what Google Health is doing. I'm going to skip around a little bit, and you're going to get the idea of what the thing does pretty easily.
Today, healthcare data is siloed, and innovation to improve the clinical experience is hard. The tools for frontline clinicians are clerical and suboptimal for decision-making. We need modern tools that are a joy to use. Doctors and nurses spend half their day in the electronic health record, and they often have to log into multiple systems with multiple usernames and multiple passwords, rather than seeing all the information in a single place.
That's it. That's what they're doing. It's just the operating system for doctors and physicians and practitioners. So look, they can give you a little demo. Look, you got this nice little dashboard, all the different medical records, all in one place. You can click into a bunch of stuff. It's like a fancy Google search, but for doctors and nurses and practitioners, right? And boom, it's got all the AI from Google. They're making it much more organized. The Epic and Cerners we've talked about are completely miserable companies that give you horrible experiences. So it's smart. It's an intelligent, I'm calling this an operating system for doctors. Now you'd say to yourself, well, where's the platform dynamic in all this? And that's a great question. Platform dynamic is going to be to open up this data to other third-party companies that can run their own analytics on your medical record and provide insights down to the doctor. There's so much information in here. Google's AI is very good, but it's not going to solve for every scenario. It's not going to catch every little, disease state or all these kinds of things. So how can you now let the power of the healthcare technology industry and all the healthcare tech startups get access to data? That's been the huge blocker in the industry. Is no one can get access to the data. So Google was under fire. They had millions of these health records from Ascension, which is a large healthcare provider. And Google said, we did nothing wrong. It's all compliance and all these things. And okay, here's the secret. Google's not the only one doing this, folks. Okay, there are plenty of other large companies in the healthcare industry, other tech monopolies, other pharma companies. They're doing the same thing. They're doing deals with healthcare providers to get access to health record information and to try to create intelligence, to try to create value for the physician, for the practitioners, and all these kinds of things. Now, the network effect is coming from APIs and third-party developers that can create software for the end user. The end user in this case being the physician. And then if you look at, Google just bought Fitbit and Apple, what they're doing with the consumer. Then what you can also do now, if you're Google and you're trying to differentiate yourself, now you can bring that consumer user-generated data, tie that into this operating system. And that is, so, that's a lot of what I hear from the industry, from the healthcare tech industry, is just the health record alone doesn't really get me over the hump for everything that I'd want to be able to learn or analyze, right? The health record data is, it's a mixed bag of value. But when you can start pairing together different sources of data, so the health record, certain, lab diagnostic tests, your genetic information, your user-generated Fitbit information, you start tying these things together. That's the holy grail. Now you start to open
tying
that
them
up
together and helping identify patterns and useful insights from that. I think the other complaint doctors have is, sure, my patient brought me their Fitbit, but I don't know how to make sense of all this data. So you need those third-party developers and the platform provider to bring insights and bring value out of that data from tying it together. It's not just an aggregation.
I think they're kind of calling this like Google search for doctors. I'm calling this Android for doctors. This to me is more where Google search is a content platform connecting you to other websites with content. This to me is a development platform that is giving you value. It has killer apps just like Android does, right? The killer apps for this are these dashboards, these key analytics and views and key points of AI that they can deliver to the doctor. And that gives you that stickiness, that key overall dashboard, and some key kind of things that you can dive into. The App Store then are all the hundreds of thousands of different permutations or very specific use cases that Google's never going to be able to build all that stuff. And they shouldn't build all that stuff. But they're helping to bring the data together, clean the data, provide key insights to the doctor to get the doctor using this. And then the next step is, how do you open this up? And oh boy, I can already hear all the critics. And you want to know who the critics are? The critics are the incumbents. Okay, you want to know who is saying, oh, this is so horrible that Google is doing this? It's the incumbents. I guarantee that behind all of these nonprofits that are saying this is so horrible and Google's so horrible for doing this is absolutely the EHR software companies like the Epics and the Cerners.
Right, which own like 90% of the market and have basically
Epic and Cerner 56, but yes, a majority of the market.
They've made it suck for all of their users.
Right. And pharma companies, it's the incumbents. It's the incumbents that are absolutely behind the majority of the outcry here. Net, this is a good thing that Google is doing. This industry has needed to be disrupted for a long time. Yep. And finally, I think it's coming and it's going to be good. So I have faith in David and the team. Apple, I'll give Apple credit. I think Apple's doing a lot of very interesting things in this space as well. So power to them and keep it going, and we will continue to cover it. Hi, this is Alex from Winner Take All. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the content. Feel free to leave a comment, ask us questions, and definitely make sure to join us on our next live stream.